Monica, thank you so much. Thank you for the audience that has gathered here on a bit of a rainy Sunday. Um, it's always fantastic to see that Bombay events, which are about politics, actually manage to draw in people. We have a reputation of being a city that doesn't care about politics. Hopefully that will start changing. It's, Sanjay, we're I think, in a very interesting space right now. We're on the cusp of something which is hard to tell, right? For 10 years, we've been seeing the BJP ruling single-handedly almost, with a brute majority. Enough and more contentious issues have come up. We've seen a very different new brand of politics play out. And for a few months ago, say if this room had gathered in February, I think all of us would have possibly gone back believing that the BJP was coming back with a massive super mandate, right? From seeming to be an invincible party, from the Prime Minister seeming to be the tallest leader who could possibly do no wrong, we're now in the end of July, just over a month after the election results, and somehow all of this seems to have changed. The seemingly invincible now suddenly seem very, very fallible. Criticism is coming their way. The other day I saw Navika Kumar asking tough questions of the finance minister, which was good. Clearly people are growing or re-establishing their spines that they had possibly lost over 10 years. So we're seeing something different, right? And then, does it really mean that the next 10 years, next 5 years will be different? The liberals are very happy. They see this as some sort of a moral victory. The Congress is possibly very, very re-energized. And is it too early to celebrate is the question, right? On the other hand, voices in the right wing are rather despondent. But is the BJP is still the world's largest electoral party. So is it too early to rule out a comeback of sorts, a resurgence of sorts? These are all very tricky questions to navigate, and it needs a lot of nuance. This is not a television debate that Sanjay is very well used to and accustomed to. I'm glad to have Sanjay here because Sanjay is allow me to say this, but he's a bit of a misfit in politics, right? He's paid the price also, in fact, Sanjay, of speaking truth to the party that he, was very firmly entrenched in. But he's never shied away from speaking the truth, right? And he appears, and I don't know how he does it, but he appears on all of these television shows where there is not a minute of news, but there is an hour of debate on prime time, and he very patiently sits through all of them. So we're lucky that we have someone like that. I'm sure you'll show me more patience than you show Navika Kumar and Rahul Shiv Shankar and Arnab Goswami. And then, let's jump into this, Sanjay. Thank you for being here. I wanted to ask you first, does it feel good now to be a Congress wala? Are you sleeping better? Are you breathing easy at this point?
Why are you sounding like Arnab already? But Kunal, listen, it's wonderful to be here. And I think as you started, first and foremost to all of you here in Mumbai, the audience, I believe, that the biggest statement of a democracy comes from its people. And I think, Kunal, both of us need to be extremely grateful that, as you rightly said, on a rainy Sunday evening, there's Olympics and there is a lot of fun stuff you can do in Mumbai. And you have taken the trouble to come here. So, guys, a big hand for yourselves to start this evening with. Thank you very much for being here. And I'm also assuming that all of us here are biologically produced, so I think hopefully we'll have a lot in common. But to answer your question, I think, last evening I was actually in Pune and attended Veer Das's, comedy program called Mindful, spelled Mindfool. And when he was narrating his story, it was astonishing that a guy who's a stand-up artist and is brilliant, and he made a statement to the audience, and he said, listen, I just got an Emmy a few months ago, but 9 months earlier, I was branded as a terrorist. And this is our country. So I do believe that somewhere when you look at whatever has happened in June 2024, is there a reason for optimism, or are we probably getting too carried away, right? The fundamental question. And I do feel that at this point of time, the situation is, and I don't want to dampen spirits, neither do I want to kind of believe that, we need to be pushing ourselves down a rabbit hole when there is none. So there is hope, to borrow from the old Doordarshan cliche, cautious optimism. Cautious optimism. The situation is tense but under control. And I think we need to understand that contradiction in terms. Like, this is a remarkable election. Both the India Alliance and the NDA believe they have won. Now, that I think is the real victor is the people. Because I think what you have now is the old Bollywood movie of the 1980s in particular, right? Every movie was a triangular love story. And the heroine liked X, so he thought he was done, and he was like going to he had blissful days ahead. The guy who was losing out in the race waited for the other guy to goof up so he would have a chance to come back. And most Hindi movies of that time, you never knew who was going to end up with the object of affection. And I think right now the Indian voter has kept both the India Alliance and the NDA in a state of, I would say, very distinctive confusion. The Congress and the others are feeling upbeat, but as you rightly mentioned, things change. It's possible that you may have a more dramatic, shall we say, outpouring of change in the months ahead. It's also pretty much up in the air as to whether an entity which has been remarkably successful, a model that has worked, will they take a defeat in their stride and not strike back? I would say at this point of time, your guess is as good as mine.
But there is a sense of change. I mean, or are we overreading this? Because suddenly it feels like there is an opposition that one can see and one can feel. Journalists like me, I can tell you, are breathing is slightly easier. We feel like, okay, there's still that much more space to push. On television, as I said, right, there is a sense of criticism. The RSS is criticizing the BJP, something that we didn't see happening for 10 years. So there is that change, but again, when you look at it, things seem to be the same. The Prime Minister is still in the saddle. All the top ministers are still there, right? So you don't see new faces, you don't see a new agenda. Over the past, say, about 6 weeks or so after the results, we've seen a series of communal lynchings and hate speech. Yep. So much of it feels the same. I mean, help me make sense of this, Sanjay.
Well, as I say, the more things appear to change, the more they appear the same, right? That's what we say very often. And I'm glad you mentioned it, because I don't know how many of you are aware, but you still have the cold-blooded lynching deaths happening in India, number one. And we all need to recognize the larger context, that we are living in very extraordinary times. You may have a circumstance where by the end of this year, the man who's probably got 34 federal charges, including subversion of democracy, insurrection against his own government, election fraud, I'm not even going to talk about Stormy Daniels, this man could be back as the president of the United States, right? It's something that we need to come to terms with. Now, we all send our children to Harvard and Stanford, and we send our kids to the US for higher education. And that country is electing, or rather re-electing, Trump in a couple of months. Now, that's some education, right? And I won't be surprised if the kids will sue the parents down the line. But here is the fundamental point, that you also have a situation in America. And I keep coming back to America because everyone keeps saying that US is the big beacon of democracy. I read the data yesterday, and the numbers, I'm sure, have gone up. Around close to 40,000 Palestinians are dead in Gaza. 15,000 children are dead. 21,000 missing. I'm not even going to get into the number who are injured. And Benjamin Netanyahu is addressing the US Congress to a thunderous ovation. Now, this is the reality of the world we live in. All right? All this talk about the Western press and UK and human rights, etc. they're non-existent in reality. I think Gaza is a turning point in the entire conversation on, I would believe, the human values and the human rights and the whole international institutions that we talked of. Nobody is even listening to the UN Secretary General. Bring that down to India. Everyone knows what India has gone through over the last 10 years. Let's be honest about it. There is fear in the country. Has it dissipated? I agree with you. Probably people are breathing. But can you imagine the desperation that we all have felt? When I say we, I'm assuming a large part of the people who are sensitive to the issues of constitutional liberty. The fact that we're able to breathe is making us feel elated. That's desperation, right? And I'm glad that you and I are not pretending here, because I think we got a very enlightened audience and we'd love to take their questions later. We can't afford to live in a fool's paradise, right? Here is the point, that if you look at the context of the world at the moment, and we're not going to use the standard cliche, the Putins and the Xi Jinpings of the world, etc. The truth is that India, actually, if you think about it, in 2014, was the Indian verdict was really a precursor to the big far-right success all over the world. India is not a follower. We could actually have been the trendsetter. And when the G20 happened in India, everyone came here and talked about the great democratic traditions that the Prime Minister espouses, which was like hypocrisy on steroids. So ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, that is the truth. That if we believe that our democracy has to be reawakened, it's partially there, it's got a long way to go yet, it's down to us, right? It's the people in this room, it's the friends we have, it's the family members we talk to, including some very brusque uncles on WhatsApp, including. I'm just going to say that it's a battle. And, democracy at the end of every election cycle creates hope, but it also leaves a lot of damaged goods. And so I want to just say this at the moment, and I have been an eternal optimist, but I need to tell you this, Kunal, and to the audience here. There is a structural damage that has happened in India's social polity. What you said to me before we walked in, the genie is out of the bottle. Will it go back on its own? Impossible. The word is impossible. Will it take a Herculean effort to do that? Absolutely. Do we have the necessary resilience to do it? That, I guess you are the best one to answer that.
But Sanjay, I want to quickly, take you from that point. Now, I mentioned the fact that there have been, so many lynchings and instances of hate speech over the past 6-7 weeks alone. I don't see the Congress really coming out and speaking as vociferously as it must. I don't see the opposition playing the part that it must and standing up and speaking for, the country's minorities. And we've now got evidence and data to show across the country that the minorities had voted in large numbers in favor of the India alliance. Yeah. So the question is, is it enough for people in rooms like these to be elated when the countries marginalized are still not receiving from a resurgent opposition? They're still not receiving this kind of sense of solidarity and hope that they must. Is that a failure of the opposition already?
I think it is. I'm glad that at least people spoke up when the Uttar Pradesh government came out with a directive. And for those who don't know about the Yatra, saying that, you should put out your name, not just the name of the owner in a food stall, but also the employees' names who are working in a food stall, and basically put it out, because it was not about the food they produced, it was about the identity of the owner. Now, let's get real about this, Kunal. Go back to 1930s, an economic crisis, and the National Socialists under Adolf Hitler take charge. The comparisons are very diabolical, because what did the Nazis do, right? They said, outside of every shop or a store, you put out the fact that the Jew was literally emblazoned there. Yeah. And it started with an economic boycott, but the underlying theme was one, not just polarization, but it led to segregation. And we'll not even talk about the horrific consequences it led to. I'm not saying that Indian democracy is that weak that it will allow a situation to escalate. But these are things that have been articulated by people with concern, right? Because who knows about the future? I don't know. You don't know what the ruling dispensation can do tomorrow. So I do believe that if the opposition today does not wear the badge of being secular and fighting for the minorities, then I think we will probably gradually, and then the gradual accelerates pace. And if we don't speak up enough, we are essentially not on the side of anybody but of the ruling dispensation. You see, for example, if two people are in a contest, you are both trying to beat the other. But if one guy is actually playing footsie and you hit a ball at me and I'm happy to hit the ball in the net and let you win, then we are both accessories to a crime. So I do believe that at this point of time, it's a big test for the Congress in particular, because the Congress needs to own up the idea of India on which it has probably been able to reclaim a lot of space during this election, especially with some victories in Uttar Pradesh and in head-to-head contest against the BJP. But my sense of having seen the BJP, and I monitor them extremely closely, is that they are a very programmed outfit, like some of their very inspired counterparts of the Western world in the very disturbing part of the World War II. They know that you need a machine-like efficiency to get the message out. And your book, and for all of you who haven't read the book, although I know you have been here before, his book, H-Pop, is really talking to you about the propaganda culture that is so absolutely dangerous, uses music, poetry, and incidentally book launches, as you rightly mentioned, to completely do a psychological brainwash of the people. Who's going to be the detergent to ensure that the brainwash is restored to its original condition? It has to be the opposition. So I think the big challenge for the Congress today, including the India Alliance, of course, is to stop now getting into petty conversations. It's a good thing that Rahul Gandhi has held the Constitution as a constant reminder to the people about their rights. The next step is to kind of step it forward to ensure that those rights are enforced. The BJP is feeling cornered. I think Mr. Modi is at the moment extremely distraught and a disturbed man. But if you look at his political career, he is likely to hit back hard. I'm optimistic, though, that the people of India, probably having seen through a lot of this hyperbole and rhetoric, are not going to fall in that trap again. But then once again, I'm an eternal optimist, and I could go completely wrong.
So, let's talk about brand Prime Minister Modi, right? We've had a very interesting election where, as you said, he called himself, someone who was not biologically born, or at least he suspected he wasn't after his mother's death. We've seen him go around and ask for votes, for himself, and the campaign was Modi ki guarantee, right? People didn't support him. Just before the elections as well, we saw that Prime Minister Modi stood in Parliament and said, "Ek akhela sab pe bhari." Right? I'm the only one standing, and I'm enough for all of you. Now the same Prime Minister is on the day that the Parliament opens, is coming and complaining to the media that the opposition doesn't allow him to speak. So tell me, what has happened to brand Modi? Are critics, rather prematurely celebrating the descent of brand Modi? Or do you think brand Modi has taken a hit that is going to be very difficult to recover from?
Well, I used to always think that Mr. Modi was very bland, but he's got a remarkable sense of humor. The other day he said, the media is actually very against me. So I thought, that was a very sharp and a witty comment. And, end of day, I do feel that Mr. Modi is smarting under the verdict of 2024. Now, here is a man who publicly said, we are going to get 400 and the opposition is going to sit and look at us from the visitors' gallery. Now, that's arrogance of a very high kind. And, ultimately, all authoritarian leaders it's strange, but including somebody who rose from very humble beginnings. So Narendra Modi is a fascinating story. Nobody can deny that. But it's amazing, right, that he took on Lutyens and he took on the establishment, but he's now the establishment. Because I don't think Mr. Modi had a clue as to what the people were thinking about the 2024 elections. If you read his statements, he talked about 400 par, and he was mocking the opposition, calling them a khichdi government and Mili Juli Sarkar, which is exactly what he's running today, right? So the bottom line is hubris. He actually thought that he's the supreme leader. This is like God. That those statements that he made, I mean, don't take them as just some kind of a impromptu, like you and I don't have a script, right? We are talking literally like two people, like you and I would probably talk at Starbucks. So here is the point. I think he does not talk without a script. Everything is teleprompter friendly, even if sometimes you might mix up Austria and Australia. So I think the larger point is that when he makes those statements, he knows exactly what he's aiming for. He thought that the opposition was vanquished. And then he discovered during the campaign that when he talked about आपका भैंस कोई चोरी कर लेगा, आपका मंगलसूत्र को उठा के ले जाएगा, that the people of India were not feeling too inspired by that kind of very crude jibes being made at Rahul Gandhi or the Congress or the opposition. People have answered, not in entirety, but I can tell you, I keep telling people that from 400 to 240 is actually a loss, a notional loss, since the notional loss is what brought BJP to power, right, in 2014. It's a notional loss of 160 seats, right? So the truth is that things have changed, undoubtedly. You can see the Uttar Pradesh internecine, the kind of wars that are happening between Yogi Adityanath and Amit Shah and his people. It's pretty obvious. I mean, you and I don't even have to pretend about that. We'll have to see where it goes. But usually what happens is that when an authoritarian leader begins to diminish, and I don't think why we should be surprised. I personally said it on TV on that day. If despite electoral bonds, despite a miserable economic performance, highest level of unemployment in India, rural distress, farmers on the streets, the destruction of institutions, of failed foreign policy, and high inflation, the attack on minorities. If despite all that, if Modi and the BJP got 240 seats, it's remarkable. It's truly remarkable that there are still a lot of people in India who still believe that story. And that's what gives me the worry. I'll tell you why I'm worried. I believe that they came technically down 63 seats. In my opinion, the BJP, if you look at pure performance, ought to have been much lower than that. And that, to me, is the challenge for Rahul Gandhi in the opposition. That if you get complacent now, trust me, situations can reverse rather quickly. Think about it. Joe Biden defeated Trump when Trump was expected to win. 4 years later, Trump is the front runner against what he calls his laughing Kamala even today. So it's a worry. I mean, things change, ladies and gentlemen, but things also can reverse to the status quo if you're not alert at all. So my big suggestion to everybody here, whichever side of the fence you're on, although I hope you're more on on his side of the fence than the right side that I'm sitting on. In democracies, there is no room for complacency. The day you become lazy about it, that we voted and the BJP is down to 240 and the liberals have won and let's celebrate this great democratic revival, I think that's when the problems really begin to get aggravated.
So, I mean, at this point, I'm glad that you brought this up because this is something that I think a lot of the analysis has possibly missed out on is the fact that we look at the BJP's performance and, of course, we talk about the fact that they were aiming for a 400 and they finally got a 240. But Amit Shah said this very recently. He said, think of it as two kids in class. One kid has always been getting 80% and he's now aiming for a 90%, right? and the other kid has always been getting a 20%, and he says, I'm now going to get 30%. So he said the guy who's always got 20% has got 25 this time, and he's celebrating. And the guy who's got 85 from the 80 last time, of course, he's not got the 90% that he aimed, but he's now sulking. Right? So is that really what is happening? Because if you look at the absolute numbers, 240 for a third-term government is not bad at all, Sanjay. I mean, the last time the Congress got anywhere close to 240 was in 1991, right? After Rajiv Gandhi's assassination, that too. So this is a third-term government which has still been able to get a massive mandate. In terms of the actual number of votes for the BJP, many of you will be surprised, they've got more votes this time than in 2019, right? The vote share has gone down only by 0.5% or so. So, are we really sort of reading too much into the fact that they've lost the seats? But, would it be the case that there still is a significant amount of public sentiment which continues to back the BJP and Prime Minister Modi?
See, I think it appears, if on the face of it, as a conundrum, but it is not. I'll tell you why Amit Shah is wrong. And Amit Shah is going to say this more often because he has to create a counter narrative in favor of the BJP. This, ladies and gentlemen, was not a normal election. This was an election where I feel it's like you and I going for a boxing match. And, I have had my protein shake. I have rested here in some beautiful, sexy hotel for 3 days with my trainer making me do all the right biceps and triceps. You enter the boxing ring blindfolded, okay? You're not wearing no sneakers. And I have got my gloves while you are they're just giving you two hankies are tied on your wrist. And what else can I do to you? Let me think.
That's a very good description of journalists at this point in India, but
yeah. So I'm just going to tell you and imagine that contest, right? So I'm all set. I don't have to do anything at all. You're blindfolded, and I can hit you under the belt. So the truth is, this was not a level playing field election. I think that's where you got to look at the performance of the India alliance as significant. This was a David versus a Goliath election. And the reason why the BJP will try and keep saying that, we are 240, but the Congress hasn't even got to 200 if you add their last 3 Lok Sabha elections, or the fact that the opposition put together is 232, what the BJP will not tell you is that the people of India haven't voted for any party to form the government. It is a fractured mandate. The people of India haven't told Mr. Modi that we want you to lead your party and your style of government. They've told him that you have to work with other people, and if you can't, there's an alternative that may be in a position to experiment with that chance. So I think the truth is that this is a message to Mr. Modi's government that your old style playbook politics is now under scrutiny. Now we'll have to wait and see, Kunal, as to how the elections play out in the next couple of elections in October. Now, the reason why we have to go back to the elections, unfortunately, is because during the period between elections, there is no acceptable index where people believe you get very dispassionate data. All opinion polls are dubious. I don't want to even tell you, ladies and gentlemen, but I have been privy to some conversations where the exit polls that were shared with the people of India and the world at large were, according to one source, and I'm not going to disclose their source, they were under pressure to disclose certain numbers. When Rahul Gandhi and others talked about the stock market manipulation happening, it was not some kind of a, subpar, under the belt, speculative, kind of bullshit. There was a lot of merit in that argument. So, you have media, which is...
You're a man of finance. I mean, I want to sort of push you on that. Was there manipulation?
I feel that everybody knew that if the BJP wins, the markets will go up, as they have gone subsequently, because the general impression that has been created by the right wing all over the world, including the Republicans in the US, is that the right wing is great for the markets because they are supposed to be the free market, kind of promoters. that's the impression that is created. So by and large, if you look at the elite of India who are in stock markets and so on, they want the BJP because they think the BJP will cut taxes, which they did in 2019. Big taxes were cut for the corporate sector. They believe the reforms are not about Manrega and food security. Reforms is only when you cut taxes or open up something to foreign investment. That's a general impression. So can you imagine a Prime Minister of India and a Home Minister of India giving interviews to TV channels a couple of days before the results were out, saying, watch for the stock markets? I mean, that's bizarre. I mean, you have Sucheta in the audience, and Sucheta is probably one of the best brains that you have in the way the markets operate. I haven't seen a prime minister or a president commenting on what way the markets will behave if the elections go in favor of X. That to me is like, I don't know how we actually endure this kind of outrageousness without even questioning what is being said. So here is the truth, Kunal, that I do feel that when I look at the situation today, and I keep coming back to that the elite of India is what I think Mr. Modi believes are his best brand ambassadors. They champion his cause. So when a big industrialist who once was supposed to be an epitome of liberal views regularly tweets about the great things this government is doing and almost appears to be like a cheerleader for this government, it influences people. You know, they're like, hey, hang on. I mean, this guy doesn't seem to have a very, blatant political partisanship. So if this guy is saying something about the government, it must be true. So I think Indian corporate elite or the business elite is something that Mr. Modi has quoted, and he's quoted it without, I think, give him credit for that. He's been unambiguous on that front. Don't forget, Mr. Modi was in the ads for Jio when Jio was launched. He was in the ads for Paytm when that happened, right? So that's a reality. And I don't know how many of you went there, but he recently attended a big fat Indian wedding as well. So I do feel that...
Were you at the wedding, Sanjay?
No. I've just done some body shaming. I won't be there. So I do feel that end of day, there is a whole model here. And I hate to draw comparisons, but one of the reasons why dictatorships or near dictatorships, I believe India is an elected autocracy. Even despite it being a wobbly TDP and JDU supported government, you can buy the silence of allies. One call from CBI, ED, income tax, and everybody is like, as you said about media, right? L.K. Advani's famous quote, I asked them to crawl and
asked them to bend and then
they crawled. And in Mr. Modi's case, they were asked to crawl and they have gone prostrate. So I think we have got to get real about that. So this is it's a remarkably fascinating situation, Kunal, and a great time for you to write a book.
Okay, but I wanted to ask you this. I mean, you spoke about a wobbly alliance at this point. Where does the alliance go? Because the other day Mamta and Akhilesh were in Calcutta, and Mamta Didi was having an election rally, and both of them said that it's a matter of time before the India Alliance forms the government in Delhi. So there have been these voices from India Alliance partners. Do you, sitting here, believe that there is truth and there is credence to that? Or do you believe that this is again a way of narrative setting and trying to sort of, enthuse their own cadre? What is happening here?
Well, I think predicting an Indian election or an Indian political circumstance to change is like guessing on the English weather. So it's a tricky terrain, but let me tell you...
predicting Nitish Kumar, I mean, that is... Yeah.
No, but can I be honest here? I think a lot of people who are supporters of the liberal India Alliance, let me tell you, it was a goof up to allow Nitish Kumar to move away. Nitish Kumar, a lot of people, of course he's called Paltu Ram and all that, which is fair enough. He's deserved that sobriquet, so be it. But the truth is that had Nitish Kumar been held back in the India Alliance, you would have been having Mr. Modi as a leader of the opposition. Because imagine how Bihar's results would have changed. In Bihar, the BJP and the Alliance has still got the bulk of the seats, right? Nearly around 28 to 30. If Nitish and Tejasvi and the Congress had been together, it would have been the other way around with the BJP down to single-digit numbers. It would have been probably an India Alliance government. Now, the reason why Nitish went is because of the arrogance, I believe, of the grand old party. And I'm being honest because I know people in the Congress, and I'm being blunt about that. Not giving him just a innocuous title of a convener. I mean, why would you procrastinate on that very ornamental position? Nitish is not young. He just wanted an ego to be satiated. They had to just make him a convener. He was not going away anywhere. So he felt humiliated. He went back. And he's damaged, by the way, the India Alliance by the performance in Bihar. So which way will it go? I can tell you that where Mr. Nitish Kumar is concerned and Chandrababu Naidu was concerned, they wanted a special category status, which is very different from what Nirmala Sitharaman is given in the budget. So there will be political pressures for them that, hey, aapko special category status to nahi mila hai. So already Tejasvi is doing the right thing. He's questioning Nitish that what have you done? Because all the projects are through capital investments of the center. So as someone who follows this very closely, I can tell you that Nitish will probably be the one that the BJP will be worried about. Because where does he go from here? What does he become? Another chief minister? I mean, people in politics have aspirations. That's why you find more fights happen within parties. Because you get threatened by the next guy who could take your position. Nitish, where does he go? They're not going to make him deputy prime minister in case NDA were to last. And I don't think he wants to be chief minister again. I mean, it's frankly speaking ridiculous if he were to be. In any case, until the election results came out, they were planning to shaft him out. So Nitish is the one who's the vulnerable guy. And as you all know that Tejasvi and Nitish, we are all like Chacha Bhatija kind of a relationship. Things can happen. I can tell you politicians from different parties talk to each other all the time. Just because they're not on camera doesn't mean they're not in conversation. Where Chandrababu Naidu is concerned, he's got a huge mandate in Andhra. And I think he would like to be stable. One of their moves is not going to be enough. So we'll have to wait and see. But where things can change is if the opposition wins Maharashtra. The Congress is at the moment looking a front runner in Haryana. Can it get Jharkhand and hold on to Jharkhand? That will be the big story in my opinion. Congress is the front runner in Haryana as of today. India Alliance is today the front runner in Maharashtra. But I need to make this very clear to you. Is this as of today? In Indian politics, who knows what announcement somebody will make and the people will change their ideas, right? I believe that Aam Aadmi Party, Arvind Kejriwal, when he gets out of jail, I think he will make sure BJP is humiliated in Delhi in the elections in 2025, early January. And then you have Jammu and Kashmir and Bihar. If the BJP were to lose these 3-4, and I do expect them to lose, I think both Nitish and TDP, if they were to kind of feel uncomfortable, because you are dealing with a Hindutva party, guys, let's be real. The BJP's entire existence is based on communal polarization of India and making somebody look like their bad third cousin twice removed within who was trying to be a big
But they both
threat.
allied with the BJP in the past. I mean, this is definitely not new for them.
Not new for them, but at the end of the day, I mean, they'll play for bigger stakes within an India alliance. It's possible. Of course it's possible. You think, I mean, both Mamata and Akhilesh are openly talking about a potential fall of this government, not just to send out a message that things can change, just to kind of keep some rhetoric and keep the political hot potato churning, because these things can happen. That's the truth. And we'll have to wait and see what happens. But I feel that the real success of Mr. Modi and Mr. Shah has been the way they have made the BJP, the party within, they have all become like puppets. You watch a Lok Sabha TV, when Mr. Modi speaks, the way everybody knows they're on camera, the way they smile, the way they thump the chairs, they're like robotic. And I think the BJP as a democratic party is literally dead. So Mr. Modi and Mr. Shah have completely captured the party. I don't think anybody in the party has the guts to take them on. which is why I'm watching Uttar Pradesh closely.
But I want to first come to something that, you know, a lot of us seem to have been missing, which is the fact that within the RSS, there's been some very interesting noises coming out, right? Where Mohan Bhagwat says that a true sevak can never be arrogant. I don't know if he meant it for the Pradhan Sevak, but then he also goes on to say that, you know, some people have believed themselves to be God, and that is wrong. So clearly there is something happening. He goes and meets Yogi Adityanath over 3 days in Gorakhpur. Clearly there is a lot of churning happening within the UP BJP as well. And I was speaking to someone in the RSS, and he says, ye samudra manthan ho raha hai. You know, this is churning that is happening. The question is, the Amrit that comes out, will it be beneficial for the country or for the RSS? That's the big question. So what is happening? I mean, what is your sense of this?
Well, I think we should be real about this. The RSS is the ideological guru and the big mothership of the entire Sangh Parivar. The BJP is the political arm, but that political arm has the power to really control institutions, funding, and various other influences. The RSS needs Mr. Modi to be there when they celebrate their 100 years in 2025. Like it or not, that Mr. Modi doesn't like anybody to tell him as to what he should do. So he's like like the prodigal, disgruntled child who's tasted power. And he's told the RSS that I need you, but now let's talk on an even keel. I think Mr. Bhagwat's comments are obviously based on the fact that he must be embarrassed with some of the things that the Prime Minister said during the campaign. But I can tell you, had the BJP won, Mr. Bhagwat would have said nothing. You see, the RSS will always, and the BJP, and you have done wonderful research on it, the VHP, the Bajrang Dal, the AVBP, they are all part of the same huge saffron setup. And one of the reasons why the BJP never splits, or very few people leave the BJP and join other parties, is because they are bound by this inextricably intertwined ideological fanaticism that we are so-and-so. And that's our definition of India, right? I mean, end of day, like it or not, I still believe India is a partial Hindu Rashtra at the moment. So the bottom line is this, that there is a serious degree of commitment to the cause. There will be operational glitches. Mr. Mohan Bhagwat will make some kind of an innuendo. Mr. Modi will hear it and say, well, Mr. Bhagwat is probably unhappy with me because of the fact that we didn't win 400 seats. So he will take it in his chin, and you will find them hugging and celebrating as soon as some election results go in their favor. If they don't, obviously there will be further fissures and crackers. But I don't see any significant, shall we say, cleavage emerging at this point of time. I do feel that RSS and the BJP talk in a forked tongue. When the RSS appears belligerent, the BJP will appear soft. When the BJP goes over the top, the RSS will appear to apply the balm or the palliative. Don't get fooled.
Similarly, in UP, you mentioned this and you referred to this. Now, I know this, and a lot of people in the room might be very surprised, but when I was researching for the book, Sanjay, I would travel the hinterlands, and especially in the northern and central Indian belts of Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, UP, Bihar, I would get a lot of people who said that, now we've had enough of Mr. Modi. Now bring us Yogi, right? Yogi is what we want. Is what is happening to Project Yogi? I mean, it feels like there is turbulence there. There are cryptic comments being made by his deputy CMs. They're rushing to Delhi every once in a while. Rumors are, of course, juicy rumors are flying thick and fast. But Sanjay, what is your gup?
Well, I can tell you that the by-elections are coming up in Uttar Pradesh, 10 seats. So Yogi wants to obviously control the state because, like it or not, he's now become more formidable than even Mr. Modi and Mr. Shah in Uttar Pradesh. I talk to a lot of people who are from UP. And, we guys may be shocked by the bulldozers and all that happens. But trust me, there are large sections of UP that is very happy with that kind of an aggressive, demonstration of the power of the state targeting a certain section of India's minorities. Uh, I think the hard fact is that today Adityanath's challenge will be that he's got a person sitting in Delhi who will want to have their own persons in power. Now, look at what Mr. Modi has done since he became Prime Minister. L.K. Advani, out of the window. Murli Manohar Joshi, out of the window. Sushma Swaraj was actually already being sidelined. Where is Shivraj Singh Chauhan? Where is Vasundhara Raje? So anyone whom he has thought to be his, somebody who could be compared to him is very, there's nothing subtle about that. It's pretty much brazenly they're given the message that you need to be taking a step back. If not, you'll be pushed back. You see, when a crisis hits you is the real test of leadership, right? As they say, in calm waters, every ship has a great captain. For Mr. Modi, the challenge begins now. His own brand is diminished. He's seeing, I think, probably difficult elections in October. In the event that he were to lose all three, that's when I suspect there will be some kind of a churn within the party. A lot of us were speculating, I'll be very honest, that a Rajnath Singh or a Nitin Gadkari, who have been not treated with the kind of respect they deserve. Look at Nitin Gadkari, his portfolio hasn't changed, and he was considered by many to be an alternative to Narendra Modi. So I do feel that the BJP has got some restlessness within, but I keep coming back to the point, these two gentlemen have got a massive control over the party. Will they let it go? Very unlikely. We'll have to wait and see how the BJP president stuff happens, right? Because JP Nadda is holding it even as we talk. It's a fluid political situation. But UP is the place to watch, because if Adityanath gets the feeling that he's being ostracized in the larger game plan, then I think things could spiral out of control. We'll have to wait and see how the fragile Maharashtra alliance holds on. It's a fascinating few months, but if the India alliance is smart and wins the three assembly elections of Jharkhand, Haryana, and Maharashtra, and I hope down the line next year, of course, it's time for Bihar, but Aam Aadmi Party in Delhi, then I think Indian politics could see a major turbulence. And probably what a lot of people are secretly hoping for is a surprise fall of this current government.
Now, Sanjay, we're sitting in Mumbai. We've seen over the last, 4 or 5 years or so, the state of Maharashtra politics. Especially when I travel to rural areas, people keep saying that this is not the culture that we were used to, right? Of parties breaking and splitting, the kind of harsh rhetoric, the kind of communal rhetoric as well. I mean, all of the hate rallies that we've been seeing across the state. I want to ask you not a question which is firmly focused on the political, but somewhere slightly beyond that, which is that, what does all of this, what is this political instability, what is this, sort of this khichdi sarkar, and on both sides, right? We've got two big alliances, 3 parties each. We don't know what's going to happen in the next few weeks. What does all of this do to Maharashtra as the country's most urbanized state, the state which gets the highest FDI? You've been in the big banks. You've been a man of finance. Tell us, does political instability of this sort affect the state, affect the governance, and as a result, everything that was supposed to come to the state? Because there are allegations, and then some of them are true, that a lot of the big projects that were supposed to come to Maharashtra have all gone to Gujarat or other states. What is this doing to the state that we're sitting in right now?
Well, think about it, Kunal, that you have India's Home Minister, Amit Shah, when he's campaigning, he talks about Aurangzeb ke aulad, right? Aurangzeb is actually resurrected 1,000,000 times. I'm sure somewhere in his grave, Aurangzeb must be wondering, why am I a topic of conversation in the age of digital consumption in the modern world? But he is, right? Everyone is talking about Aurangzeb all the time. I think the reality is, as you rightly mentioned, that Maharashtra has now become an experiment for political power because of the fact that this is the state which is the richest state of the country. And And what you saw, the breakup of the Shiv Sena and the NCP, told you why the BJP recognizes that this state is crucial, because if Uttar Pradesh slips out of your hand, if you lose Maharashtra, you become highly susceptible. And that's exactly what happened in 2024. They did badly in UP, and Maharashtra, they haven't done well at all. So you have Congress doing remarkably well, and the MBA alliance, I think, put up a very good performance. From what I'm hearing, it should be a very comfortable victory for the MBA alliance as of today. Let me add that as a caveat. I think for the BJP, the biggest mistake they have made is that, there were certain projects that were meant for Maharashtra, one of them being the international finance sector. I mean, for God's sake, this is the place which is the investment hub of India. You got the biggest banks, investment bankers, the stock markets, merchants, the entrepreneurial class, industry, and you diverted that to Gujarat. Why would you do that? I believe that Maharashtra's story is always going to be an attractive story because there are certain advantages. It's cosmopolitan all over the countryside. People are aspiring to come to Maharashtra and work, whether it's in hubs like Mumbai, Pune, Nashik, Nagpur, wherever. So I think the Maharashtra story hasn't faded, but clearly it's plateaued. It's a very anemic level of growth. And I think the people of Maharashtra are recognizing that reality. It's no longer just Uddhav or Aditya Thackeray saying that the BJP has moved, all the big projects to Gujarat. I think end of day, the people in Maharashtra, I think, are clearly feeling, because this has been a very secular state. Don't forget that until Nitin Gadkari won, in Nagpur, it was a Congress that was winning all the time. It is a state which probably has been the epitome of our freedom struggle. The biggest names have happened from here. So I feel Maharashtra, people in Maharashtra are very, they're very mild-mannered. They are not, there's no boastfulness. People are very unassuming, but very sharp. People here are educated people. And I think when I see Maharashtra politics getting into this pretty ugly polarization, it will face a backlash. I think the symbol or the manifestations of that are evident already, which is why I think the BJP is today under panic. And if the India Alliance does its seat sharing well, and you have an India Alliance government in Mumbai, whoever is the chief minister, I think it will become a defining narrative for the next 1 year or two, and probably could result in the collapse of the BJP, because the confidence is lost. I feel even in these by-elections in Uttar Pradesh, out of the 10 seats, Samajwadi Party is looking very good in 4 or 5. So Yogi, if he puts his entire effort in that, he may not see the results. And maybe Mr. Modi and Shah may be happy with that. So for all political parties, this is a period of what I call is some kind of an intriguing flux, where you may want your own party to not do well because it helps you to put down somebody who could be your biggest threat tomorrow. Interesting times.
That is very interesting. And one last question maybe before we open it up to the audience is, we spoke about this before the event started as well, Sanjay. I mean, this sense of celebration, this sense of elation among critics of the government. And what do you see the coming 5 years to be playing out as for India? Because we discussed the lynchings, right? We discussed the ongoing communal rhetoric. We discussed how a lot of this rhetoric is going to stay no matter who comes to power. There's one aspect which is that we've also seen in terms of laws, we've seen the new criminal laws coming into place. Some of that has
146 MPs were suspended, by the way.
Absolutely. Right? Some of that is very problematic as well. I mean, we've got sedition out, but we've got a similar provision in its place, and I can go on. In Maharashtra, if, I don't know how many people here know, but a new bill has been proposed, the Maharashtra Public Safety Act, and that has extremely problematic provisions as well. So, electoral victories and losses aside, what are we looking at for the next 5 years? How does India go from here?
Well, to be very frank, as far
Assuming
as
that Mr. Modi is in power.
if Mr. Modi is in power, I think there are going to be serious question marks on democracy. The Prime Minister coming and saying that I'm being interrupted tells you that there's a lot of haughty demeanor is pretty apparent. In the Manipur debate, the Prime Minister came on the last day. He wasn't even there on the first 2 days of the debate. Personally, I feel Mr. Modi's mask is off. I think, a lot of people who were like, he means well, but he's entrapped by the party. I mean, I keep telling that to a lot of people, and I'll tell you that as well. In 2014, a Gujarat model was sold to the people of India. And everybody saw the Gujarat model as FDI and vibrant Gujarat and commercial investments and industry-friendly tax breaks. But nobody said that the Gujarat model also had the 2002 riots. The Gujarat model also had fake encounter killings. The Gujarat model also had a subversion of democracy or the muzzlement of the press. So there was a Gujarat model that we chose not to see. We actually chose to be blindsided. And thereafter, why are we surprised? Right? So I think somewhere I always feel, Kunal, that when change happens, it doesn't happen overnight. There are warnings. It comes, it's there, you choose to ignore it. I remember in 2015, when Muhammad Akhlaq was lynched in Dadri, I asked myself a question. Here is an ordinary Muslim man cooking some meat, and his own neighbors come into his house, barge in, disrupt the serenity of his home, and bludgeon him to death on the suspicion of eating beef. And we were okay. We all went to sleep as if nothing happened. It happened with Pehlu Khan. And then it may have happened with maybe some people from different communities. Some Hindus were also killed in some attacks. But let's be honest, it was a very undisguised attempt at harassing minorities in India. When Love Jihad happened, we were okay. When all the Karnataka politics happened on halal and hijab, we were okay. So we chose to be an accessory because we chose to be silent. I think this is something that we all need to recognize. If you have to save democracy, if you're silent, you have to tell yourself that you are actually not sitting on the fence. You are actually on the side of the perpetrator. And I'm being harsh here, but when you see crime, if I were to see crime, and I were to look away from that crime, I'm actually a witness, and therefore, I'm a participant in that event. I think a large part of India chose to be in that bandwagon. And I think that emboldened the powerful party into believing it's okay. So I used to always ask myself this question, if I was Mr. Modi, and I went on 2019, May, whatever date he won the election, and I looked in the mirror and I said, well, everybody was talking about Rafale or, death of democracy, lynching, but I've got the mandate. I've got the mandate to do what I want. So to answer your question, Kunal, it's a loaded question. I would be worried for India if Mr. Modi were to have a full term. I would be worried because, politicians actually don't change their playbook. If you hear Donald Trump, he's now openly invoking Christianity in his speech. It's gone, right? It's gone beyond just an attempt to play to the evangelicals in America. So there is an attempt to actually become more hardline. So, we all feel that defeat will humble you and you will become softer and you'll become more tolerant. If it appears to be so, it is on a no-choice basis. But there will be an attempt to try and recapture that space. So are we vulnerable yet? The answer is yes. Are we as vulnerable as before? The answer is no. Can we get out of this black hole? Absolutely. How do we do it? You can do it. And therefore, my simple, humble submission, and we'll of course take your questions, is that in a democracy, there is no place for laziness and complacency. I think whether you can influence 2 people in a WhatsApp group, whether you can come for a gathering like this, which is like incredible, or whether Kunal, who takes, I think, some of the boldest, bravest risks to write the book and the articles he does. To me, Kunal, people like you are heroes, okay? Because I know how much of risk you take for the stuff you say and what you do. And I feel that all of us who are trying to do whatever we are trying to do, I think we are contributors to the larger India story. And I think the people here in this room should never believe that their powers are limited because they just vote on a certain day. You have no idea the kind of influence that you bring through the things you write, through the things you share, through the things that you think of. But I am a big believer of being a student of political history and looking at how one of the most powerful men in the world did what he did, right? America today is worried about Trump, but they were okay with what Joe Biden was doing on Gaza. It's a strange world we live in, right? It's a very complicated world. So I just feel that today we are in a crossroad. The choices, we have to make them. And a country becomes what it becomes by the choices its people make.
Huge round of applause, guys. Sanjay Jha, thank you so much. Carefully optimistic conclusion. Let's have some questions. Can we have mics, maybe? Yeah, there, the gentleman. Okay, there and there. Yes.
Thank you for this. My question to both the panelists are, recently the NGO has said that about 4 crores votes were overvoted, equivalent to about 79 seats. Do you think the India Alliance should snowball this into a big movement? Because if that is true, then the reality will be very different from what it is now. And just a comment, being a businessman, I want to debunk the myth that BJP is better for business. Congress is bad, BJP is worse. If the stock market is booming, it's because there are no asset classes. I'm sure Karachi Stock Exchange will also be booming. Thank you.
Okay, can we have, do you want to take?
No, I'll take the run.
Okay.
You know Mudit, one of the very well-known brokers from Bombay, he quoted to me the name of a very big bull broker, and he said that he was told that the BJP is good for the stock markets and the Congress is good for the country. So I asked him, well, in that case, who are you voting for? And he said, I'm voting for the stock markets. So I think I keep coming back, right? It's the choices we make. But I think based on your finding, yeah, I read that report. It's a very disturbing report where they talk about the votes that went up by the time the final counting happened, and how in all those seats where the voting went up, the BJP has won a significant number of seats. India Alliance has to go to the public. I'm telling you, if you want reforms, I was very much in the mainstream Congress when the decision was taken to adopt the ballot paper. But the Congress party for a long time did not push it aggressively, build a consensus, go for it. Like I loved what Akhilesh said. Akhilesh said, even if we had won 80 seats in Uttar Pradesh, even if we had won all 80 seats in UP, I would have still wanted no EVM, I still want a ballot paper. You see, you got to speak with clarity. So Mudit, I'm entirely with you. The answer to your question is the India Alliance needs to escalate this matter, bring it to the public's notice, because I will repeat it for your benefit. The last elections are an extraordinary election for the India Alliance because they fought with their hands and legs tied. They had no money. Congress's bank accounts were frozen. Arvind Kejriwal was and is still in jail, came out for 2 weeks to campaign. Hemant Soren was in jail. You have no idea how the opposition has been hounded. To be frank, we were not just authoritarian. I need to tell you, I think we have been almost like a fascist country.
Okay.
Hi.
Question 2, yeah.
Hi, I am Muhammad Wajiuddin from the Times of India. Today I found how difficult it is to enter elite club. It took me and another gentleman 1 hour to find quorum. But had you done it at the press club, I would have just walked in. But then perhaps you would not have got this kind of audience. Now I come to the question. The question is that a prime minister, a leader of a party, got so much, such a great success, despite having said and used the words like Muslims, Murga, Machli, and Mangal Sutra, but Manipur was not there. Do you still have hopes that despite such a massive support to Mr. Modi and the kind of politics he does, the kind of idea of India that he sells to his cadre and beyond, do you still have hopes that 5 years down the line or maybe in the middle, we will be able to take him out of the seat, or he will be, ousted out thrown out of the power?
Well, who assumed, for example, that Donald Trump will lose to Joe Biden? Who assumed that Boris Johnson will be thrown out by his own party? Things happen in politics, Mr. Vajahuddin. I will tell you something, that when Mr. Modi is concerned, the speeches he made, highly pedestrian, extremely puerile, hardly becoming of a prime minister of a country which has seen a prime minister who wrote books like The Discovery of India. But it tells you how politics changes, right? I mean, Americans love Trump. They once upon a time, kind of admired Abraham Lincoln. So we live in very different times, that's the truth. I do believe that the mask is off, and I think the mirror has cracked. My general understanding of political history, looking at personalities, is that people can bounce back. But I think when you have a spectacular rise like Mr. Modi has had, the only way forward for him is actually going down. The question is, can he arrest his fall, which we very often in finance call a stop loss. He's capable of doing it because he still controls a lot of the institutions. What stops him from tomorrow just creating a campaign and blaming somebody for something, or his government can frame charges on anybody? His government can frame charges on Kunal and me for having this debate. It's possible. He can do whatever he likes. So the truth is that today an ED and a CBI and an income tax and a big media, by the way, which is literally at the beck and call of this government even today. So they may have softened, but they're still, pretty much, like Rottweilers who can on the loose be very dangerous. So the bottom line is this, that you have a precarious situation. I'm not going to be, going to make some prognostication as to whether Mr. Modi can last 5 years. On the face of it, if there are few elections that are happening, they lose, his position is extremely vulnerable. And I do feel that a lot of people within the BJP, restless and so far bludgeoned to silence, may just find a voice.
Okay. Sanjay and I will be passing a hat around for bail money. Yeah, we will be doing that. Third, yeah.
You said something about Modi lasting 5 years. I have a question for you. We've all seen in the last 10 years that Bombay, India's Jodi number one, who has been the Jodi number one, okay? Now there seems to be some sort of rumblings, and the whole power struggle, power dynamics seem to be changing. And if Rajdeep Sardesai is to be believed, if you heard his column today, he talks about poor Mr. Amit Shah having to bounce away because we've got Chandrababu Naidu coming in to take that place. You think at all this could happen? And if it happens, it's good news. I don't know. What is your view?
I mean, Farzana, once again, I'm not going to indulge in any speculative gossip. But yes, there can be no denying that the BJP today is not what it was before June 2024. Had they got an absolute majority, I can tell you that a lot of people in the opposition today would have probably been preparing to go to Tihar, undoubtedly. The fact is that they are at the moment, momentarily, definitely nonplussed by the shock of the result, and to an extent paralyzed like deer in the headlights. Now, in politics, one thing which I will tell you, Farzana, people are not ever static. There is Ashwini here who's very active in politics as well. Politics is so dynamic that people are thinking, breathing, sleeping, and drinking politics all the time. It's about survival, it's about conquest of power, it's about beating somebody in your own party, it's about beating the opposition. So, if anybody here is going to be under the false notion that the BJP has been smashed and it is going to lie like the Congress was for 10 years, forget it. One of the reasons why I had a problem, Farzana, with the Congress was because I found the Congress not fighting back. And if you read the article that I wrote in the Times of India that led, not entirely, but was a trigger for my suspension, is an article that actually tells the Congress why it needs to fight back. And the Congress was like laid back, complacent, lazy, and happy to just kind of snore. And BJP will collapse under its own contradictions. It does not happen that way. I'm just seeing Rahul really become a completely re-energized individual. It's a renewed Rahul Gandhi. I think even the great Mr. Chetan Bhagat is now praising him from what
He's written a piece today.
Oh, yeah. Which I think is symbolic of the changing times. And I do feel that there is a hunger emerging in the Congress. The Congress is responding quickly. I love the fact that Rahul is holding press conferences on the exam scam, and he's got into the nuts and bolts of politics. So I do feel that somewhere down the line there is a hunger within the Congress, which is, I think, the best news for the opposition. But my worry will remain that the opposition needs to be relentless in its pursuit of recapturing the idea of India. Because, everyone in this room, and I can tell you the vulnerable people of this country, the number of people who are actually queuing up to move to different parts of the world because they say, we can't risk being here because things are getting out of control. We need to fight for them. I think all of us in this room are highly privileged. And if we do something with our privilege, trust me, we will end up saving Indian democracy.
Okay, well said. Yeah.
Let's try
Your
to keep
question,
the
yeah?
questions brief so that we can have more.
Yes.
Please go ahead.
I'll keep it brief.
I'll keep my answers brief too.
I'll keep it brief, but I can't hold myself by saying that I love the analogy about the boxing ring, except for the fact that I think Kunal went into the ring with his hands tied at the back. Sanjay, they had all the power. They had the institutions at their beck and call, money, power. They in fact froze the opposition parties' accounts, etc., etc. In spite and despite of all of that, and the fact that they were there for 10 years, what went wrong? Why did they get less than 272? For me, as I see it, it's a disaster for them. They have to struggle to get the two other ends, Nitesh Babu and Naidu Babu. So what went wrong? They had everything at their beck and call. Am I to assume that the people of India are getting a little fed up of all the noise and the right-wing conduct and language? My second question, can I, my second question, please?
You'll have to buy 2 of his books. That's the only
I will
condition.
do
Yeah,
that, I
that's
will
okay.
do that, yeah. And why I ask what went wrong is not because I'm unhappy. It's because can India Alliance learn from anything from that and capitalize on that? My next question is similar to this, where I ask is, what are the 2 or 3 things India Alliance should focus on in the coming few years that can keep the momentum going? Thank you.
Okay. Such a related question is, I have been traveling for the book and for my reporting over the last 5 years across the country. One issue that I have had with the opposition is that I have never seen the opposition on the ground fighting some of these issues. I travel a lot to rural Maharashtra, to Vidarbha, where farmers are killing themselves at the rate of 3 farmers every single day. I don't see the Congress really doing anything on the ground, raising agitations, doing more. And this is, I can go on and on about so many issues. So this gentleman's question, do you think an opposition which was alive for 5 years could have then finally delivered better results at the elections? Is that one of the things that went wrong?
I think could have done better, undoubtedly. And I think Mr. Modi's victories really happened from states where he's penetrated, like Odisha, etc. But, your question is valid. Look at the result from Ayodhya, or Faizabad rather. A lot of people, that was the epicenter of the BJP campaign, right? The Ram temple was the epicenter of the entire campaign. And the people of Faizabad have said, we want to live in peace. We don't believe in all this. I think all of us as Indians here, all of us as Indians, I'm sure all of us love our constitution, our democracy. Who fights for these results are the ordinary people. And I always believe the ordinary people vote fearlessly because they have no ED. आप कहाँ से उस गरीब किसान के पीछे ED भेजोगे? अब कहाँ से वो बेरोजगार जो बेचारा वो नौजवान बैठा हुआ है उसको आप उसके पास इनकम ही नहीं, इनकम टैक्स क्या रेड करेगा उसका. सो दोज हु आर fearless are voting from the heart. And you, as you rightly mentioned, issues like unemployment, such a young country, right? And you have a demographic dividend that stands destroyed. If you look at the last data, 9.2% is the level of unemployment in July 2024. I mean, how many seats? 60,000 UP constable seats, jobs. 48 lakh people, including PhDs and engineers. Mumbai airport, 25,000 people for 500 jobs. This is a reality of India. Mr. Modi thought that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. He thought it's all about targeting, the same old playbook of polarization. That's why the BJP lost, because somewhere I think all of us in our heart of hearts, I'm making this presumptuous call, ladies and gentlemen. In our heart of hearts, we are all good people. In our hearts, we are compassionate people. We are people who mean well. We don't hate. We don't want to see ugliness. We don't want to see one of our colleagues getting hurt. We don't want what happened in Manipur happen into different states. Can we forget the humiliation of a Bilkis Banu? To me, the Bilkis Banu is a reminder to us of how India has really fallen in its own eyes. A gang-raped woman of 2002 gets humiliated when India is celebrating 75 years of its independence. Rapists are released and we are okay with that. And I believe that is what we need to understand here. So your question, that the people of India somewhere have said, you know what, we are not the way we are being made to be. I'm a Brahmin, I'm a Hindu. I've been partially raised in the beginning years of my life by a man called Nurul Hasan. And I've written about that in my book, because my mother was very busy looking after my other siblings. And abhi kaun hai bhai? Nurul Hasan ji, aap free hain, aap hi Sanjay ka dhyan kijiye. That was the India we grew up in. It didn't mean that we didn't have problems. I'm not saying that there were no communal temperatures rising before 2014. But the way it found a naked, brutal face, and the way the state chose to look away, calls for genocide, we are okay. There are websites being created auctioning journalists and eminent Muslim women. We are okay. We are okay with that. I think that's where the people of India have somewhere said, stop that. And I feel that is the biggest takeaway for me from this election, Kunal, that in Faizabad, where the BJP said, but you know what, even we lost even earlier. That's not the story. The narrative at this time was different, right? I think people of India told Mr. Modi, Mr. Shah, and the BJP, because in Uttar Pradesh, is Samajwadi Party which has got more seats than the BJP, that we have had enough of this politics. Tell me, what have you done for me? And I think that's where the BJP had no answers. And I'll tell you why the BJP struggles, because it cannot go beyond that Hindutva rhetoric. And that is a chance for the India Alliance to actually go back to the politics of the past, which is go back to roti, kapra, makan, bijli, sadak, pani. Yeah.
Okay, next. Here.
Good evening. Yesterday I was at a presentation it's a pre-departure tour orientation to the US. And the one who's organizing the tour said very bluntly, America's on the decline. So this is your best chance to visit the US. So my pointed question, is America really on the decline? And a loaded question, is India on the decline?
Okay, how do we answer that? And I don't want to answer that, but there's an incomplete answer to what you asked me, what the Congress should do, and I'll come to you immediately after that. The Congress should actually learn from the Democrats in the US. If you look at it, Trump was the favorite to beat Joe Biden, Sleepy Joe as he called him. The Democrats worked hard. Biden came from nowhere to get the nomination, and they battled together. Bernie Sanders is loved by many people, but the Democrats took the hard call that, if you appear too far left in a country which hates communism and words like socialism, you lose the election. So they softened that part. There's left of center, but they defeated Trump. Look at what they have done now. After the attempt on Donald Trump's life, obviously the huge sympathy wave. Look at Biden's decision. He withdraws his nomination, and suddenly Kamala Harris has become a serious contender for the presidency. That's how you fight an election. You surprise your opponent. Donald Trump today has no narrative to take on Kamala Harris. And suddenly, between the two, he's the older person, right? So the whole narrative has changed completely. To answer your question, I think when America says that under Trump that we will withdraw from the climate change protocols, when Trump has said that he is actually happy to see a weaker NATO, what does it tell you? That America is actually withdrawing from its larger global footprint, right? That is the decline of America. I think the decline of America has started. And sometimes the decline is not just evident in the GDP numbers. America is super affluent, $27 trillion. The next chasing them is China at 19 or 20 trillion. India, well, we are, according to Mr. Modi, the fastest growing economy. We are at 3.75 trillion. But here is the truth. Here is the truth. America has been on a decline for a while. And while I'm a big fan of Barack Obama's oratory, and the books he's written are brilliant, I think America even then was taking some decisions that weren't really largely in the interest of global peace. So here is the challenge for America today, that you're going to have a president who's charged for 34 or 35 felony charges. A man who attacked his own government. A man who said crooked Hillary and who's going after Kamala Harris now. If Donald Trump is the choice of America, I think America is frankly going down morally, and as one, what you used to talk about as that unipolar worlds, the big hope for democracy. That story is over. In America, the conversation is very similar to what we talk here. Is what's going to happen to press, what's going to happen to institutions. But I do believe America is not as fragile as we are. As far as India is concerned, my optimism comes from our diversity, actually. If you look at the results from various states, they're pushed back. Mr. Modi was expected to do very well in Uttar Pradesh, he did not. He was expected to sweep Rajasthan, he did not. He was expected to do well in Maharashtra, they got absolutely knocked out here. What does it tell you? It tells you that India is capable of throwing surprises. But my only caveat always is going to be that politics is about a 24/7 competitive mindset. While we are gloating somewhat over the success of the opposition, don't forget that the BJP today is in Odisha. It has removed successfully, democratically, Navin Patnaik from power, which seemed incredible just a few months ago. They are the largest opposition in West Bengal. They have won a seat in Kerala. They are a force in Karnataka. They have made inroads into Telangana. They have a partner in Andhra Pradesh. So the party is not going away anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. And I think that, to me, is the challenge of the coming decade for India. You have to live with the reality that India is now an ideological right-wing alternative in the form of the BJP. BJP is not conservative. They are right-wing. And they can be right-wing in a very extreme sense when it suits them politically. How will it work electorally? There is one number that should, frankly, for the supporters, it will excite you. For the critics, will worry you. It has found a threshold vote share that once you get that threshold vote share in politics, you never wither away. The BJP prior to 2014 could come down to 18, 19% votes. Today that number is moved to 30% and above, which means that at its worst, the BJP is going to pick up 140, 150 seats unless there is some kind of a black swan event. It can happen. Maybe the BJP will implode with some leadership issues. Maybe India will say enough of this hate politics. It's possible. I will not rule it out. But as of today, it can be safely predicted that the party is here to stay. The party will have a definitive presence. And the only way for those who believe in the Gandhian, Nehruvian construct, who want a secular, liberal place where you and I live and tweet and criticize without fear of a CBI, ED, income tax, or any kind of reprisal, I think for that, we have to work harder, ladies and gentlemen. But then, nothing good in life comes without working hard.
Okay. Next question. One. The last one, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, second last.
Do you think that we are better off having Narendra Modi compared to Xi Putin and Trump in this world?
Wow, that's a great comparison. You definitely want to take
I
that.
think comparisons are odious is the famous cliche. I think Mr. Modi should be very flattered by that comparison. But we have a situation today where I don't think we have ever seen so many leaders in different countries at the same time being so similar in their ideological propensities. A lot of people are celebrating what happened in France, where the left did remarkably well in the elections, in the parliamentary elections in France. But I feel, don't forget, the right wing is becoming strong in different parts of the world. Poland, Austria, Hungary. Europe has been suddenly, woken up. I think the UK election results is more...
But I mean, Labour's barely Labour anymore,
yeah,
right?
Labour is also, let's not even labor the point anymore. So I think the larger issue here is that we are seeing, in my opinion, a greater degree of more in-the-face right-wing extremism. A lot of xenophobia, greater degree of tribalism. These are the words we normally use when we talk about extreme right-wing politics. The fact, I'll tell you something, Mr. Advani was once seen as an extreme fundamentalist. When Mr. Modi became Prime Minister, everybody said, Advani ji to bade hi mulayam aadmi the. Now when people see a prospect of Amit Shah, they say, actually Mr. Modi is a moderate man. And suddenly when they see Yogi Adityanath, they say, Amit Shah, oh, sweet old Amit. So I do feel that the story changes progressively. And when degeneration begins to happen, the previous guy always inspires some degree of nostalgia. So, yeah, I think you're right. Mr. Modi, at the moment, looks like he's got shades of some of the contemporaries that you mentioned. But probably some people will say that he's still a mocktail and, not really a very dangerous concoction.
Okay. Yeah. Last question, yeah.
Can't hear you.
Thank you so much, Sanjay and Kunal. It's just a small comment on what you say. Of course, what you say is very important and seriously for us to consider, but we do have a legacy. India has a legacy that is very unique, and we are diverse, and our 272 has shown that it is we the people whose voices have resounded. It is we the people who can change and who can bring about the change that we're looking for. Yeah. And as Mahatma Gandhi has said that be the change you wish to see in the world. So I think, David did beat Goliath. And I think we have to have, at least in my heart, there is that degree of optimism. Yeah. And yes, we have to be awake. We can't be asleep. We can't be delusional. But yes, we have to put up the fight. And yes, we the people must win.
Absolutely. I think this is exactly what I said at the very beginning when you and I started talking, Kunal. The one thing that nobody can take away from us, that nobody can take away from you, ladies and gentlemen, is hope. And I think hope is a very powerful word. We all live on faith. And I think you should never surrender your faith. I mean, trust that ordinary person whom you don't know, who's working in your home, who's probably working at the moment in the farms in Odisha or Bengal or Bihar, a landless laborer, the poor guy who probably survives on that Manrega payout if he gets the wage on time. I mean, think about it, ladies and gentlemen. Today, the results of Uttar Pradesh and some of the rural seats of India have told us that they have probably saved Indian democracy. You have, by the way. If the BJP was expecting, I was told, all the 6 seats in Mumbai, and it ended up winning 1. And I think all these contributed to stopping the party on its tracks. Not entirely, but the very fact that you have made people think, the very fact that you made somebody who was taking it for granted. I mean, I remember Mr. Modi's speech. I have already told the bureaucrats to prepare the blueprint. And this election is done and dusted. The opposition is a bunch of nincompoops. Put them in jail. Rahul Gandhi is in complete, papu. The people of India have answered. You have answered. And the millions of faces of people who are working day in and night out, surviving on meager, next to nothing, have saved Indian democracy. I remain, Zenith, like you, extremely optimistic. I'm a big believer that Kunal, all of you here, everyone here, and including the people who are supporting this endeavor, are all part of this process. We are all stakeholders, ladies and gentlemen. And we are alert and vigilant. And we don't take our eyes off democracy. Please, for God's sake, read the papers. Don't watch the news. Look for the fake news. Don't forward it, whoever it comes from. Question people. And remember, the day you get scared, the bully will come after you even more. The bully likes to frighten you. But when you stand up to a bully, I've been bullied in school, and I was hearing Veer Das's story. Veer Das said, I was bullied in school, I fought back. You fight back against a bully, the bully actually cowers down. So I think it's up to us, guys. And when you are together, nothing stops you. There's a famous saying we all use, if you want to go fast, go alone. You want to go far, go together. Let's do it together.
Thank you so much, Sanjay.
I
Monica,
have
do
a
we-
lot of public pressure for 2 more questions if you
Oh,
guys
wow,
feel
okay.
up for it.
2 more, okay. There was someone, did I see a hand up there somewhere?
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, there.
Really quick question, and thank you for this talk. Under the BJP rule, do you think, are we the people becoming more and more intolerant towards dissent?
Undoubtedly. I think, Kunal, maybe you can share 1 or 2 of your own experiences. Ladies and gentlemen, he's been very sweet about talking about my book, but I am telling you that his book is a wonderful narrative based on his own discovery of India, which he starts with his own tale in Jharkhand, where he discovered as to the power of words and what it does to you. And why is it that suddenly religious processions get so tense? Why is it that what happened in Nu in Haryana led the Punjab and Haryana High Court to say that are we seeing some kind of ethnic cleansing because people were being driven away from that place? Imagine words like that being used by judges of a high court in a democratic country like ours. That makes you question, are we a democracy at all? But Kunal, maybe you can share 1 episode of your life where you felt it all.
Look, I mean, as a journalist, and there are quite a few here, one thing that, one realizes, Sanjay, at this point is the transition that we've made as a society, right? 10 years ago, 12 years ago, asking questions of the government was the right thing to do, right? It made us good citizens. We should be questioning the government, and we were at that point. Governments changed because people hit the streets. People asked hard questions. We liked to see our ministers being grilled. Suddenly, 10 years in the process, we don't like that anymore. We don't like the journalists who ask the hard questions. We don't want the news to be doing that. We don't want to see investigations anymore. So there has been this substantial shift in how we even treat the concept of what a government is supposed to be doing. As a society, we've now reached a place where we worship our leader, right? And we don't like asking questions. I mean, it's one thing for the BJP to try and curb and quell dissent. That's not my worry. The worry is when ordinary citizens start attacking journalists, right? Start calling us prostitutes and whatnot because we've asked hard questions. And you can do this as a social experiment, which is to follow any journalist who has a significant following on social media, and each time that person posts an investigation or a news report which is critical of the government, see the number of people who respond to it with expletives and abuses. And that somewhere also tells you how we've started looking at it. And Sanjay, when I go to the rural areas, for instance, one of the first things that people say is, "Arey, aap Godi media, aapse baat nahi karni hai." And then I have to convince them that I am not Godi media, right? 10 years ago, 12 years ago, the first thing they would do is they would say, "Acha, media se ho aap, baithiye, chai pijiye aap." I've seen the decline in the respect that an ordinary person far removed from such rooms has of what the media is. So, I think there's been a shift at both levels. There's been a shift in the political rhetoric, Sanjay, but even within us as society, we've shied away from asking hard questions, and we are now paying the price, guys. Right? When inflation comes to bite, when unemployment comes to bite, we realize that we can't be asking hard questions anymore because we've stopped doing that. So this time when I went to report on the elections and when I traveled, a lot of the people who had voted for the BJP all of these years said, this was our mistake. I voted because I thought they would give me a job, and I haven't got a job. So somewhere I think we're seeing, green shoots of the attitude. Like, for instance, the budget. We've not discussed the budget, Sanjay, but there's been heavy criticism of the budget on social media from people who've also been supportive of the BJP. And leaving parties aside, I think that's a great sign for a democracy like ours, where we start realizing that we need to be asking the questions.
Absolutely. And can I add one point? If you believe you're a patriot, go back to the famous, I think, quote of Edward Abbey, who said, "A patriot is someone who has to defend his country against his government." I mean, that is the reality, right? I mean, the country is bigger than the government. And that's exactly the role that we need to play. But, there's a very interesting point that he made. One of the reasons why Mr. Modi's government struggled in the Lok Sabha elections is because they did not know what the people were thinking. You know why? Because as Kunal mentioned, people were not telling the truth to the surveyors, to these opinion pollsters and everybody. When the BJP people went thinking, "I have got the vote guaranteed and assured," the people were not telling them what they were planning to do when the voting came, because they were scared. And number two, they wanted to give them a surprise. I mean, I can tell you, people from the backward castes, Muslims for sure, they would not have the guts to tell a pollster that they were voting against the BJP. Because in the new ecosystem of EVMs, a political party can actually find out which way did a particular locality vote. And therefore, they were anxious about which way they were going to go finally. And they did not tell that to the pollsters. So eventually, to answer your question, when you throttle democracy, it comes back to bite you eventually. Remember, it has a limited shelf life. And we have to just hope, is this probably the beginning of the big change we're waiting for? One last question, and then I think we are done.
Sorry.
Thank you, Sanjay and Kunal.
Can you stand up? We can't see you.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, wow, you're right at the end. Okay.
Right at the end, yes.
Okay.
Thank you for doing this. I run a fintech out of Mumbai, and I just had a really simple question. I think, according to me, this election was the voters telling the BJP that it's not happy without an opposition. So it went and found the opposition. And I guess Rahul Gandhi doing the Bharat Jodo Yatra, or essentially anti-incumbency, either of it, I think it played up. Now you've got an opposition. Do you believe that Congress should potentially not aim to dethrone this government prematurely, but continue to kind of work for a wider margin in the next election? Thank you.
I mean, he's right. A lot of the experiences I had on the ground reporting the elections is, Sanjay, a lot of people voting for the Congress because they were so unhappy with the BJP, not necessarily lured by, the Congress and what it had to offer. Is this the anti-BJP vote that the Congress and its alliance partners have also encashed on to a large extent? Or do you think the opposition has deserved what it's got?
It's always a combination, I'll tell you. It's always part anti-incumbency is a little bit of pro for the party that you vote for. That can be a subject of a more scientific, rigorous kind of a research. But to his question, it's a very valid question. Should the opposition try and topple the government? Absolutely not. Never do anything that appears in the minds of the people that it is an immoral act. Much as we all know that Operation Lotus is immoral, Operation Kamala, dismantling governments, which the BJP has done, it's come back to bite the BJP. Let's not forget that. The BJP gave 1/3 of its Lok Sabha seats to defectors. And out of those defectors, around 25 to 30% won. The majority of them lost. So the voters punish you for that. I think the strategy for the opposition has to be very straightforward. Win as many of the state elections. You have a fractured mandate for Mr. Modi. And imagine a Congress or an India alliance in Maharashtra, in Haryana, in Jharkhand. Let's assume an Aam Aadmi party in Delhi and a Tejaswi in Bihar. Mr. Modi, frankly speaking, or the BJP will be able to do practically nothing to threaten you, to threaten all of you, to kind of frighten industry, to kind of play crony capitalism. It will become literally impossible for him because the voices increase. With just 99 seats, the Congress is now, actually the Congress has crossed 100 with the, yeah. So ultimately, if by that sheer number, the dynamics change. So, to answer your question, the Congress and the India alliance must win the states. But I will tell you this much in politics. You don't have to be nice to your opposition. You don't have to become charitable. You don't have to become the good Samaritan. Unfortunately, politics is got one winner. It has no runners-up trophy. So if the BJP is collapsing under its own weight, if the BJP is kind of, got defections, and if Mr. Naidu and Mr. Nitish Kumar say, hey, listen, we want to kind of join you guys, should that were to happen, you're not going to take a position saying, no, Mr. Naidu, no, Mr. Kumar, we're going to fight in 2029. Not at all. Then your answer is, bro, what are you waiting for?
Okay, on that note, thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Sanjay, for an evening of scintillating conversation. Thank you to the Quorum. The books are available. Sanjay is available. Please feel free to buy them and get them signed by Sanjay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. You've been a wonderful audience. A big hand to all of you here. Thank you.